Actually, I haven't listened anything about this.
Don't worry, I will just share the video of today's session, or I have one demo class session video. I will just share it with you. Don't worry. And I mean,
Okay.
apart from Parshram, anyone else having any questions on the architecture diagram here?
Architecture. After.
Pawan or Kotesh, Freni, Amzad, any questions? Okay, fine. Fine, then I'll just continue it. I mean, so basically, this WebLogic architecture explains you how this WebLogic is divided. I mean, the main components of the WebLogic server would be your web container and the EJB container, and these containers will execute the code. And these containers, I mean, whenever it requires any database connectivity or any other backend services, it will connect through one of these standards, and it maintains uh, the the WebLogic. I mean, it will execute the code accordingly, so it will serve the customers. Okay, so now going to the incoming requests that are normally coming into the WebLogic would be your web client and client applications and applets. Applets we can ignore because applets are something which are tried by the developers. Okay, so when the application is in development state, the developers will try some applets. Okay, so code to call the WebLogic classes, so which you can ignore because we are not developers, we are only the administrators. So we don't care about those applets anyways in the real-time environments. So the most important thing would be, uh, I mean, it's not like outside Amzad, because when you deploy an application, maybe an EJB application or a web application or ER layer, the WebLogic, when it is executing the code, it will use that containers actually. If it is a static code, and it will use the container one to execute it, and if it is the other one, like I mean, if it is the EJB, it will use the EJB container to execute that particular code. But when you're deploying the application, you deploy directly onto the WebLogic server. WebLogic server is smart enough to handle this actually. It will just handle which code to be executed on which container, and it will just execute that particular code over there. Okay, so we don't need to worry about it. It's just like for our understanding how these WebLogic is making the code execution and all. Okay, so basically coming to the incoming request, there are two categories, main categories, because the third category we can ignore. The two categories would be the client application and the web client. So coming to the client application, so client application is nothing but sometimes one application calls the other application. That means your WebLogic server is hosting some application, say suppose IRCTC or any other main application. Okay, so when you have an application running, there are certain small applications which eventually try to access this application. Okay, for example, you can get the PNR status from multiple applications outside, but the PNR status of Indian Railways are available from the IRCTC only, right? IRCTC is the main application. So what we do, we create some small applications, and internally we make a call to that IRCTC and get the data. That's it. So these applications are termed as the client application. So one application trying to access the other application. For example, even the cricket live scores also, you could see a lot of applications provide you the cricket live scores, but officially the scores are presented on one of the websites like ESPN or Cricinfo. They will be maintaining these scores. The other applications will actually read the data of this application, and they will publish on their own websites. So these are like your client application, so one application accessing the other application. So mostly there will be cases like sometimes your you will have a partners for your customers. For example, if you go for Redbus, so Redbus you have multiple partners. So you can book the tickets directly logging into that partner website, like the Casino Roger, whatever the travels, you can directly log in there and you can book the tickets there. And you can also book the ticket from Redbus. So that means you are using an application which interacts with the other application. So if you book the ticket from Redbus, it internally calls the vendor application, or you can directly log into the vendor application also. So in this case, the client application would be one application which is your partner and it is accessing your application. Mostly in those cases we go for this client application calls. So normally the client application will not come with a browser. So normally whenever you are going with the browser calls, like the web client, there will be browser calls. The protocol would be HTTP and HTTPS. But sometimes when you have a client application, it uses different protocol. Okay, like JRP, JRMP, T3, T3S, IIOP, COM applications. COM protocol. There is multiple protocols. These are called as client applications actually. So they will directly interact with your business sometimes. Okay. So coming to the web client is something like your normal browser hits. Most of your hits that are coming from Google Chrome, Mozilla, or Internet Explorer, Safari, whatever it is. So when you're accessing any web publication, you are termed as the web client. Okay. So normally these web clients, when we say we are using the browsers, the protocol we use would be HTTP or HTTPS. Okay, because you will be interacting your applications from the browser. Say suppose facebook.com, Gmail, Yahoo, whatever. So you are trying from the browser, you are hitting the WebLogic servers of that particular applications, like Facebook application WebLogic server or Yahoo WebLogic server. You are hitting it from the browser. So you use the HTTP protocol or HTTPS protocol over the browser, and you are hitting the particular server instance. So this is called as a web client. Okay. So now I will just explain you the difference between a web server and an application server. Okay. So if you're fine so far with the session, we can go ahead with this. And I'll do one thing from tomorrow. Maybe I'll just divide this session into two batches, because of the heavy load. Like there are more than 8 or 10 people coming in. Sometimes it is very difficult for you guys to raise up a query, or i mean just asking something, or you feel difficulty of the voice quality also, because we have multiple channels open. So what I'll do from tomorrow, I'll just split the batch into two sessions, maybe 5 people on each session or 4 people on each session. I'll just continue the sessions. So if someone missing the one of the session, you can join the other session as well. We can plan like that, and we can just make sure the quality is maintained all throughout the course. Okay. So now coming back to your web server and the application server. See, mostly the web servers are used to serve the static content, not even the dynamic content. They are only used or limited for serving the static content. So web servers, the three important points you should remember about web servers are: web servers serve only the static content, and conditionally dynamic content. Conditionally, in the sense, sometimes web servers can handle the dynamic request, just like adding a new feature to that. Like if you add the cache module, so it will have that feature, like first time it will go to back to the application server and get the dynamic page. Next time it uses the cache directory and it can serve the dynamic page. But simply for simple understanding, so web servers are restricted, or doesn't have the capabilities of serving the business logic and dynamic request. So web servers can handle only the static pages, the first thing. And second important thing is, web servers are very fast in response. So when compared to the application server, they are very fast because they are not performing any business logic. They are not executing any logical code there. Just they will pick a web page and they just dump it out to the customer. That's it. So that's why it is very fast when connecting to the when talking to the clients. And the third important thing is, Web servers can communicate with only two protocols, HTTP and HTTPS. FTP web server will work, but we don't use FTP because when you expose your application to the external world, if someone uses the FTP, there is a chance of people getting hacking the files. So your physical files can be retrieved by the external clients over the internet. So that's why we avoid the FTP. So practically web servers just use two protocols. One is HTTP and the other one is the HTTPS. Okay. So these are the three important things about the web server. Web servers can handle only the static pages. Web servers can only support two protocols, HTTP and HTTPS. And web servers cannot, I mean, they are very fast when compared to the application servers. Okay, so now I just already explained you what is a static page. Static page is nothing but your HTML code which doesn't change dynamically. Okay, and your PDF files you see in the websites, the PDF files and all are served from the web servers only. And some images, sometimes you can see the images also on the website. All these are like static pages. So I will show you an example of a static page. So mostly the college websites or the information pages will be static pages actually. So we'll take a browser and I will just show you some example static pages. So if you go for any college website, so this will be of static content, so that doesn't change dynamically. Okay, you could only see the page and the information. There is nothing like interaction. There is no interaction with the web pages. You cannot interact. That means you could see here, this is an example of a static page. You can see the information of the institute. That's it. There are few images loaded and there is some scroll ups. All these things you can do with the HTML coding, but these are static. This doesn't change. The content doesn't change, or you only see some information here. So you can read some information. There is nothing like interaction. I cannot do any transaction here. I cannot just log in, or there is nothing. So only some information pages you can see here. So this is one example of the static page. And if you see the PDF documents available here, if you click on this, it will open a PDF file. You could see here it opened a PDF file. So this is again a static page, so which just gives you some information which doesn't change dynamically. So this is an example of static page. So if you go for a dynamic page, like a Flipkart application, so this is a dynamic page. So here these things will be changing timely. So now I could see some glasses and other things here. Maybe after 3-4 hours I'll just see some more products here. So the products will be changing, the catalog will be changing, and also you can log in here and you can select a model and you can do a transaction as well. So we can even log in here. Okay, and we can just do the transactions, and we can do any the business we can perform here, like you just go for a product and you can buy the product. So these things are termed as the dynamic pages. Okay, so when you use a .NET code, it will be .asp for dynamic pages, and if they are using Java, it will be .jsp. Okay, so that is the difference between the static and dynamic pages. And business logic, you know anyways, right? Business logic is like something, it will be rotating and rotating and finally the output will come. So normally whenever you just do a transaction, like you're buying some product, you will be redirected to the bank application. You give your card details and entered it. It will ask you for a password, enter the password, then the transaction happens, and it will come back with the result, whether it is a successful transaction or a failed transaction. So you don't see the backend process, how it is connecting to the DB, getting what the data and all those things you don't see. Whether it's success or failure, you can see. So that backend process, we call it as the business logic. Okay, so that business logic cannot be performed by the web server. So the dynamic request cannot be performed by the web server. So that's why we come for an application server. So application server like WebLogic actually performs all this stuff. So WebLogic Server can serve the static pages. So WebLogic even can serve the static pages. So it can serve the static pages, it can serve the dynamic pages, it can also perform the business logic. Okay, you could see here, as I said, there is a two containers. WebLogic uses these containers to execute these static, dynamic, and business logic. Okay, it is more reliable server, and it is robust when compared to the other servers, and it perform robust in the sense your application is highly available when you are using the WebLogic server. So why I say highly available, because just imagine what happens if one day the HDFC net banking is down, or any bank application is down for one day or for a few hours. So 3 4 hours also leads to lot of business loss, lot of transactions are stopped, right? So you cannot transfer the money, you cannot get the money, so that means it's a huge loss for the company. Say suppose if facebook.com is not working for a day, there are a lot of people who become mad, right? So most of them are using Facebook application even every day, and every hour they will be logging and checking for the statuses and messages. And if they feel Facebook is not working properly, I mean if it is down for 1 hour today and it is down for 2 hours then the next day, people slowly ignore the Facebook application and they will go for the other applications. There are a lot of other applications available in the market like Google Plus and other things, so they will slowly migrate to the other applications as it is not doing good. So that's why when you have some critical business applications, you should always ensure your application is highly available. So when you say highly available, you should use application servers like WebLogic in a clustered environment, so your applications will be highly available. In this session, by end of this session, you will be able to configure these highly available applications. I will make sure all you guys can have good knowledge on the clustering part, and I will just make sure you will have a good knowledge on this high availability of the applications. Okay, so as I told you, application servers have its own features. I mean, it can handle multiple requests like static requests, dynamic requests, and also the business logic. Okay, so now my question is, when a WebLogic server can perform all the things, like an application server like WebLogic can perform static requests, can perform dynamic requests, can perform the business logic, why we need a web server? So because any environment you go, you will see a web server there. Not only the application server, before the application server, you will also have web server also. So sometimes in some cases like where you are using JBoss and other things, people don't sometimes use the web servers. But normally any environment you go, you will see some web servers in front of your application server. So why we do that? So when my application server is smart enough to handle all the incoming requests, so why I should have a web server in front? Okay, so the question is very simple. The answer for this question is very simple. There are two important things. The first thing is the WebLogic server is performing the business logic, it's performing the dynamic request, it's performing the static request. So there is a lot of load on the application server. So instead of all the load is maintained by the application server, if you use a web server, the web server can handle the static pages fine. It can handle the static pages very well. So the static pages will be taken care by the web server. Only the dynamic pages or the business transaction is done by the WebLogic server. So the load on the WebLogic server will be less now, because normally any business application you take like Flipkart or MobiKwik, whatever, any business application, so the people coming in, like if there are 10,000 people coming in, only 1,000 or 500 people will be doing the transaction. All the rest 9,000 people will come for window shopping. They just come and they will see the products and they go out. So they don't do the transaction actually. So for those type of customers, it's better to have a web server. The web server can handle them. Only people who are really interested to make a payment, then my application server comes into the picture. So in this way, I'm protecting my WebLogic server from unwanted requests or unattended customers. We can just make sure your WebLogic server is, is not directly headed towards them. And the second important thing, or the main important thing I should say, see, whenever your first page, maybe the home page, it is a static page or it is dynamic, whatever it is. Mostly we use the static page for as the home page, or the simple dynamic page we use as the home page. So if a web server can handle this static page, or with a cache it can handle this dynamic, simple dynamic page with a cache, it can handle it. Okay, so now Whenever the customer first hitting the application, if your web server is there, the web server will bring the first page within few seconds. So it is very fast. So then you feel the application is very fast. So for giving that impression, we use a web server in front, because whenever you hit some web page and you are waiting for 3 or 4 minutes for the home page to come itself, you will feel the application is a crap. So first page itself is coming on 2 or 3 minutes. It says the application is not good. But when you are using a web server is very fast in response. You requested for the first page, it serves the first page within seconds. Then you feel the application is fine, and you are ready to wait when the transaction is going on, because people, when they are making the money payment, they will wait. Okay, because they are having some amount, I mean they're playing with their money, so that's why they don't really refresh the page, or they will they are patient to wait for the transaction to complete. So that's why if you use a WebLogic server or any application server in the back end, so that will even if it takes some time, it doesn't make any difference, because customers are ready to wait. Okay, and that's about the application server. And coming to the firewall, this is one of the layer in the uh, your middleware. See, firewall is actually used to protect your WebLogic server, Apache server, backend database, all your environment. So basically there are multiple hits coming into your environment. When I expose my WebLogic server or web server to the external world, okay, so there are a lot of people coming in, maybe thousands of users. You just imagine the incoming request of Facebook, so it will be in lakhs. So the huge number of flow, incoming flow, there is a chance of hacking also. There are certain hackers who try to get the application data, who try to get the other people information. You know, right, in Facebook and all, people will be always trying to get the information about the other users and all, they'll try to get it. So that means there are some hackers, so we need to avoid those hackers. So that's why we use this firewall. What firewall will do is, so whenever any request coming into the firewall, it will allow only HTTP and HTTPS. That means the browser calls only it will allow. So people trying to write some code and execute it with an applet, or people trying to get the FTP calls, because FTP calls they can get some files, physical files. All these things will be blocked at the firewall. The firewall will block the unwanted protocols and unwanted hits, and it will only send the HTTP and HTTPS hits. And if we feel there is some suspected IP addresses, maybe they are trying to hack your website or something, you can just write down those IP addresses here. The firewall will block the incoming request from that particular IP addresses. Okay, so in this way we can protect our environment using the firewall. And firewall is not our business. So firewall is taken care by the security operations teams, normally in any firms. It is not in our hands, but it's always good to know the have some knowledge on this firewall. So how the firewall works and all, it just as I explained you should have some basic knowledge. That's it. Why I told about this firewall is, I just wanted to take you through the complete hit, how the hit happens and hit comes back. Okay, now let us see. This is the architecture of a simple architecture. Say suppose you have deployed a Facebook application here. Okay, so normally whenever you hit some website from the browser, I will just explain to the flow now. So this flow will help you actually to understand why we use WebLogic and where we use WebLogic. Okay, so there are different clients here. Clients is nothing but normal users just like us. So there you could see 3 users here, and 2 of them are having a firewall. Okay, so what is this firewall actually? So this firewall is what we discussed. And now what is this firewall? So normally sometimes even in your laptops, so say suppose people like, there are working people here like Frenny and Parshram and other guys are working here, right? Working professionals. So now whenever you try to access any website from your company network, say suppose from Accenture Oracle network, you're trying to access a Gmail or Yahoo Mail, so that will first pass through the firewall of the company. Sometimes company blocks certain websites. You cannot you cannot play a game from the company network, because it will be blocked. The gaming websites will be blocked. So even some companies will block the Gmail and Yahoo also. You cannot access the mailing also. So whenever you try to access that website, this firewall will block them. This firewall will allow only the websites which are allowed by the company, which are allowed by the firm. Okay, this is the firewall which is at the client side. We don't care about it because Gmail doesn't care about a company which is blocking the Gmail, right? So this depends on the firewall of your network. Okay, so this guy is like from home. I mean, whenever you are accessing from the home internet or from the outside internet, you can access any website. There is no limitations for you. Okay, so when you hit the old wide web, that is when you are hitting the internet, what actually happens? So say suppose I have typed www.facebook.com. Now the world wide web is nothing but your internet. It will have the DNS servers. We call it as DNS servers, domain naming servers. So these DNS servers will have the entries of these particular websites, like facebook.com is mapped with one IP address, gmail.com is mapped with one IP address, yahoo.com it is mapped with one IP address. Just like your telephone directory, when you have a telephone directory, in the telephone directory each phone number is associated with an address, username and address. Right. Similarly, these domain names like www.facebook.com will be associated with an IP address with a form. It will be registered. So now it will redirect that request, that facebook.com is redirected to the IP address, that is your company network. That means Facebook network, it will go and it will hit the Facebook application. So in the Facebook network, this is the network of the Facebook. As we are trying to access the Facebook application, it will hit the firewall first. It is the firewall of Facebook. So if you are trying to hit like an FTP, it will be blocked here. If you are trying to hit any virus, applet code or something, it will be blocked out here. So if it is a true HTTP request and you are not, you're genuine from a browser like Mozilla, from a trusted browser and all, it will allow you. So now it will allow your hit to the web server. Now the first page is a web home page. So if it is a static page, the web server can reply back and this response comes back to the client. And if it is a dynamic page or if it is a transaction has to be done there, so using the WebLogic server plugin, the web server will redirect the request to the backend WebLogic servers. Now your WebLogic servers, if required, it will go to the database, it will go to the third party JMS or anything, and it just responds back to the web server, and web server again responds back to the client. So this is how the flow happens. Any questions here, guys? Any questions? Anyone? Any questions? Any questions from anyone? Narayana,
Yeah,
you
this
have
is
any question? Yeah, who's this?
Parshiram.
Yeah, Parshram.
Have you discussed about WebLogic server architecture?
Yeah, I have discussed about it in the starting slide.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Okay, how about the other stuff? Other guys I have not heard any response from Pavan or Amjad is texting me. Yes, and Narayana, you got, have you understood the concept?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, and how about you, Pavan? Any questions here? Not sure. And Frenny, any questions?
No, Dilip, I got it. Because I'm also working on Java, so we also have a similar kind of architecture.
Okay, fine, fine, that's fine. So, from today, from tomorrow, we will start the regular session. So, what I'll do, I'll divide the students, we have 8 or 9 or 10 students actually. So, I will divide it into 2 batches. So, I will just share the timings accordingly. So, just, reply back to my mail. I'm just texting my mail here, or if you have any questions or if you want to have any more insight of this course, you can just text me here. And coming to the syllabus, we will be learning the installation of WebLogic, and standard Oracle syllabus we will follow. We will be learning from the installation to the configuration of the cluster and session management. And I'll also explain you some real-time cases and with some troubleshooting things of the day-to-day issues of the WebLogic. So you could see these are my emails. You can reach out to me through the mail if you have any questions. Okay, so I have given both my mail IDs, so you can just text me. So if you're fine with the session, you can just drop me a mail, and people coming from SVR, you can just intimate Varma on this. So we will I'll try to split it into two batches, and also please text me the timings you are, I mean, happy to attend the session, because I mean there are a lot of people. It's very difficult for me to just give one timing and ask everyone to join in the same time. So just provide your time window so that I can plan the session accordingly. So everyone just text me your time window, like I will be available from this time to this time morning, and this time to this time evening, and this time to this time on the nights. So maybe I'll work out with these timings, and I'll split them into two batches. So people who are not able to attend on the morning session, I can make them to join on the night session. So we can work it out in that way. Okay, is that fine, guys?
Fine.
Yeah, thank you, guys. Thank you for time. Thanks for your time. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you.